Pete, at Pocono, in the top 9 at the end of the race, there were 3 cars from each manufacturer. So can we safely say now that the field is pretty balanced going forward?
It depends on who you're speaking of. I think in the manufacturer discussion, yes, but from the teams inside those manufacturers, maybe not so much. I mean, on the Toyota side, Joe Gibbs Racing certainly there. On the Ford side, we're talking about Team Penske a lot, and certainly on the Chevrolet side, Hendrick Motorsports is up there as well. Obviously the other side of things with Richard Childress Racing and some of the other Chevy teams, they're not doing great. We're not seeing a lot. I mean, 2311 was interesting, guys, because they had 2 top 10 finishes there with Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, who came back from the rear of the field. But either of those guys, I kind of felt were going to be a little bit more of a player on Sunday. They weren't. Reddick was good. Bubba did a good job coming from the back. And again, on the Ford side, yeah, Team Penske won. I mean, RFK is still obviously trying to get a little bit better. Not seeing a ton out of Stewart-Haas Racing. So from the manufacturer side, Brett, I would agree with you. But when you kind of drill down inside each manufacturer, there's still a little bit of a line of demarcation, I think, inside each one of those.
What are you seeing, Jordan?
I see a lot of parity right now, and it feels like a lot of it depends on which track you're going to. If we were going to a flat mile track, I really feel like Penske right now is the team that everyone is looking up to. And earlier this year, it felt like Gibbs was going to win a lot of races, and now I don't want to say they've come back to the pack a little bit, but Martin Truex Jr. is not to the level that he once was. Christopher Bell is still good, though they seem a little snake bit at times. Ty Gibbs is up and down still. And, Denny Hamlin we talked about, is good, but he's also had his issues as well. This was his first top 10 finish at Pocono in the last, 4 or 5 races. So, right now, and then you look at the Hendrick side of things. I mean, William Byron isn't to the level that he was at the beginning of the year. He won 3 times, and it looked like he wasn't going to lose a race at a point. And he's been up and down. Alex Bowman's coming on strong. Larson didn't lead a lap again on Sunday, which is the 4th straight race they haven't led a lap. And so you just look at the Hendrick cars right now, and they're good, but they're not exceptional. It really kind of feels like it's a week-to-week thing where you don't know who's going to be great, and it just kind of varies on so many different circumstances.
Talking about what Jordan just talked about, and could you make the argument that since Penske and since Hendrick now have all their cars in the playoffs, that despite the fact that you have playoff points on the line each race, that they might be doing a little experimenting, and that maybe is taking them off of their groove?
A little bit. I don't think that we've that far fetched, because we've seen that before. But you're still trying to lock in guys. Again, we keep talking about on the JGR side, guys, about Ty Gibbs, right? It's it's not if, it's when he's going to win. They want to get him to victory lane. Jordan's point about Martin Truex Jr., again, he's there with the point side of things. You want to get him to victory lane. On the Hendrick side, I'm not that concerned. I mean, you talk about Kyle Larson, and the numbers are what they are, but the incident that he had at Chicago early on, we didn't see that coming. He was one of those guys. He and Chase Elliott got caught for speeding at Pocono. So there's sort of these circumstances around those two that I'm not really that concerned about. But at the end of it all, I think when you go a little forward here, yeah, you are trying to figure out some of these tracks that might have some of the similarities that they're going to have in those final 10 to win a championship. Why not try to learn some things while you're trying to put as many points on the board as you can?
Jordan?
He's right in the sense that it's really hard to get panicky and say that teams are going to do this because they're locked in the playoffs. To me, if I'm looking at the playoff schedule and saying, well, here's the favorite, I like Penske just for the fact, not because they have all 3 of their drivers already in the playoffs, just because of how the schedule sets up, especially in that final round when you go to Martinsville and Phoenix. Well, like we said, where have the Penske cars been exceptional this year? Flat, half mile to mile tracks. Well, that sets up really well. So if a Logano or a Blaney can get that far in the playoffs, yeah, I think they've got a really good shot, because they've won the championship the last 2 years using this formula of really kind of tiptoeing their way through the playoffs, getting to that final round, getting a win, and punching their ticket forward. It's worked really well for them, and I don't see that recipe changing.
Well, the thing is, and the dangerous thing is not chasing playoff points. I mean, right now you got Christopher Bell's got 24, Kyle Larson's got 23, and Hamlin's got 20. But you look at Chase Elliott, Pete, he's leading the points, but he's only got 6 playoff points. Martin Truex Jr.'s got 3, and he's sitting there in 6th place. I mean, these guys could have significant advantage once the playoffs start, which we've seen will get you into the second round maybe the third round, but there's not a lot of margin for error once you get there.
No, it's that insurance policy, right, that Kyle Busch talked about a few years ago. Those points are so important. Hell, we saw it last year with Martin Truex Jr., guys. Let's remember, he won the regular season championship. Without doing that, he wouldn't have gotten as far as he did in the playoffs. So really important, trying to find that balance between the two. Really, really an interesting mix here. And again, I think Jordan's right. When you look at the way, and I know we have some different tracks in the playoffs this year, but when you look at the way that those tracks lay out right now, and we're a long way from playoff racing, it does shape up the way they lay out for Team Penske based on what they're doing now to be really good, like they have the last 2 years with Logano and Blaney catching fire when it matters the most, and that's down the stretch there in that third round.
Jordan?
I agree. Like, it's about the playoffs. It's about getting the playoffs with as many bonus points in your back pocket as possible, because it's a heck of a safety net. It's helped Chase Elliott win a championship. It's helped Martin Truex get through multiple rounds of the playoffs, especially last year. We have seen it year after year. What you do during the regular season matters. And the belief that, the regular season doesn't matter is untrue, because it does help you along the way. And I think what you can do now, and that's why we saw teams really aggressively go after wins, especially last week for Ryan Blaney, for example, goes after that win and flips the stages and everything and the strategy, because they want the win and what goes along with it. And so what you do now matters in the regular season, in the postseason, and I think it's going to bear itself out again.
It's been interesting, as I've heard you guys talk about it, Pete, on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. It seems like the guys who chase stage wins can't get race wins, and vice versa.
It's like that the game, right, Brad? I mean, which way are you going to go? Like when you look at it, right? If you've got the win already, not that you're not wanting another win, but then you have to kind of look at the bigger picture. So there is that balance there, and I think it's a conundrum for crew chiefs when you get into these situations there of what to do. When you come down the stretch here and try to figure that out. So that's the beauty of this. And again, like Jordan said, people who say the regular season doesn't matter, I totally disagree with that. I think it matters a lot. And, when you look at where we are beyond the guys that right now are in the playoffs, trying to race your way in, trying to get it on points right now. I know Ross Chastain is just above the bubble and Bubba Wallace is right below them. I think everybody else has to win a race. And, back to Indianapolis, last year, Michael McDowell won this race when we were on the road course. That variable isn't there right now, I don't think, anymore for that to happen until you get to Daytona, which is at the last race of the regular season this year. I think that's the only outlier that you have here. So everything else down the stretch here, when we get back from the Olympic break, is getting those wins, adding them up. But Brett, to your point, putting those points on the board if you're a driver that's already locked into the playoffs.
Well, and you got, you only got 20 points separating first from fourth. And remember, first place pays 15 bonus points.
The fight for the regular season championship is the closest I remember in this format. And we've had it in years past where like one or two guys are going kind of at it. I don't remember the depth, though, where you've got 5-6 guys who realistically have a chance at this thing. That's crazy to me. And it really does put an importance in what you do week to week. You can't throw away races anymore. And I don't want to be I would hate to be a crew chief nowadays, because the how do you weigh, I'm going for the win versus I need the playoff points, I need stage points, I need this X, Y, Z. There's so many factors nowadays, and it's so hard to pass. And track position means everything. I would be sitting on top of that box freaking out of my mind going, how do I manage this thing? Because you have all these things different. Anyway, and I think the best crew chiefs, though, have mastered it. And it's why you see like a Chris Gabehart and Denny Hamlin year after year have success. It's why Cliff Daniels is as good as he is. And I think we're seeing that with Hassler now a little bit too. Really effectively manage these races. And he did it at Pocono and how we manage the stages. And he's a crew chief who's really starting to come into his own a little bit. And it would have been really easy after Gateway for him to really have doubts and second guess himself. Not the case at all. Goes back, builds fast race cars, puts his driver in position to win at Iowa. They did it. Puts his driver in a position on strategy to win at Pocono. And you heard it in Ryan Blaney's voice as soon as he crossed the checkered flag. He thanked Hassler and said, great job on the strategy, way to manage this race. That is a trust between driver and crew chief, and that manifests itself on the racetrack.